Dunkirk. The miracle on the beaches. The year was 1940. Europe was on fire. The German blitzkrieg, swift and merciless, tore through country after country, leaving the Allies reeling. Within weeks, over 400,000 British, French, and Belgian soldiers found themselves cornered on the beaches of Dunkirk, France. Behind them, the icy waves of the English Channel. Ahead, the relentless German forces. This wasn't a battle, it was survival. And what unfolded over the next 9 days became one of the most extraordinary stories of resilience, courage, and sacrifice in human history. The noose tightens. The German army's advance was unstoppable. Columns of tanks roared through France, cutting off Allied forces and forcing them toward Dunkirk. Bombers screamed overhead, reducing towns to rubble. By May 26, 1940, there was no way forward, only the sea behind them. The soldiers were stranded, hemmed in on a flat, open beach with no cover. Supplies dwindled, morale faltered, and hope seemed like a distant memory. In London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill faced the grim reality. Britain's entire army was on the brink of annihilation. If they fell, the road to invasion would be wide open. Operation Dynamo was launched, a desperate plan to evacuate as many men as possible. The odds were staggering. The Royal Navy didn't have enough ships, and Dunkirk's shallow waters meant large vessels couldn't approach the beaches. And yet, failure was not an option. The call for help. The Navy sent out a call to the people of Britain. Every boat that could float, fishing vessels, yachts, tugboats, ferries, was summoned. Ordinary citizens became part of the rescue mission, setting sail into dangerous waters armed with little more than courage. Among them was George Matthews, a retired fisherman. When asked why he was risking his life, he replied simply, "Because those boys need to come home." By May 27, the first boats arrived. The sight of the little ships on the horizon brought hope to the desperate soldiers. Men waded waist deep into the freezing water, forming human chains to load onto the boats. They climbed aboard under the constant threat of German bombs and machine gun fire. The nightmare on the beaches. Dunkirk was hell on earth. Sand flew into the air as bombs exploded. Soldiers dove for cover, but there was none to be found. Long queues of men stood silently in the water, waiting for their turn to escape, their eyes scanning the skies for enemy planes. One soldier, Private James Carter, later described the experience. "Every minute felt like a year. We could see the boats, but we could also see the bombers. You prayed, and you hoped, and you didn't dare move. But amidst the chaos, there was extraordinary discipline. Men helped the wounded into the boats first. They took turns, knowing every second counted. The air battle above the beaches, the Royal Air Force, RAF, fought desperately to protect the evacuation. Outnumbered and outgunned, they engaged the Luftwaffe in dogfights over the channel. To the soldiers below, it seemed like the RAF wasn't doing enough. Most battles were far from the beaches. But their efforts were crucial, preventing the Luftwaffe from wiping out the evacuation fleet entirely. Pilot Officer Henry Clark recalled, "We weren't just fighting for the men on the beaches. We were fighting for Britain itself. If Dunkirk fell, so would everything else." The miracle takes shape over 9 grueling days. The operation continued. By June 4, a staggering 338,000 soldiers had been evacuated, more than anyone had dared to hope. The beaches were littered with abandoned weapons, vehicles, and supplies, but the men had been saved. One soldier, climbing aboard a rescue ship, turned to look back at the smoke-filled beaches and muttered, "It's not a victory. But we'll live to fight another day," and they did. The legacy of Dunkirk. Dunkirk wasn't just an evacuation, it was a testament to the human spirit. It showed what could be achieved when ordinary people stood together against extraordinary odds. The little ships became symbols of hope, their names etched into history. The sacrifice of the soldiers who stayed behind to delay the Germans, and the pilots who fought in the skies, became the stuff of legend. Winston Churchill captured the moment perfectly in his famous speech. "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." Dunkirk was not the end of the war. But it was a turning point, a miracle born from bravery and sacrifice. To this day, the story of Dunkirk reminds us that even in our darkest moments,